Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Daemon X Machina for the Nintendo Switch. Now, for those of you that missed out on yesterday's Nintendo Direct, there's currently a demo available on the Nintendo eShop that you guys can go and download and play this game for yourselves, but I do believe that demo is only going to be there for a limited time, so if you want to check this game out, now is the time to do so. For those of you that do not know anything about Daemon X Machina, this is a mech action game by the creators of Armored Core. So basically, the short of it is, if you know about Armored Core, if you like Armored Core, chances are you are going to like this game. If you know nothing about Armored Core, this is a game where you get into a mech, which is highly customizable. I'll talk more about the customization later in the video, but basically you get into this highly customizable mech and you just dish out damage to your enemies, and you can do this by guns, you can do this in melee, there's shoulder weapons, and there's a lot of action, and the mechs are actually pretty agile, or depending on how you customize them, they can become a lot tankier with a little bit less agility. But ultimately, we're talking about a more flashy style of mech than, say, if you're thinking about Mech Warrior or anything like that. It's going to be very different. Mech Warrior is the big, lumbering, slow mechs. Armored Core is the mechs that kind of just like dash all over the battlefield and fly and stuff like that. So, you know, just to get you guys situated on what kind of game you're getting into. Now, as per usual, when I do these videos, I like to start by talking about the visuals. And I gotta tell you guys, I really like the visuals in this particular title. Like, I remember the first time I watched it, it was during one of their Nintendo Directs that they just announced this game, and I was completely blown away with the art style because I thought it looked really good. It's got these really vibrant colors. It's got a lot of reds. It's actually really unusual to see an art style like this. At least I haven't seen anything like this before. The visuals are good. They're not particularly impressive, so it's like, I love the art style, but it's like in terms of visual fidelity, it's not super impressive. You see a lot of jaggies, which you kind of get used to as you play through the Nintendo Switch. The animations are also good, but then we run into what I consider to be a serious problem in this game, which is the performance. The performance is just, like, really bad. And, you know, I have a high tolerance for performance because I play most of my games on console, so I'm used to a lot of times stuff being 30 and a little bit lower than 30, and it doesn't bother me, like, super much, especially when you're talking about the Switch, because we know that the hardware is limited. But there are instances where this game becomes very close to being unplayable, okay? And it is important to mention that. Although this is still a demo, the game is still in active development, so I hope that you guys can fix this, because I really like what this game plays like. I like the action, the moment-to-moment gameplay. I really enjoyed it, so I really hope that they're able to iron out these performance issues. When it comes to sound and soundtrack, it didn't particularly strike me as awesome, but it was pretty much good all around. Like, the soundtrack, it's got like this mix of electronica and guitars, and I'm into that stuff, so I like that. But it didn't strike me as particularly special, so to speak. And the sounds, they're good. They're not mega hyper amazing, but they're good. So let's get down to the nitty gritty and talk about the gameplay. So one of the first things that surprised me when I started playing the game is that there's actually a character creation. And, you know, it's a simple character creation. It's got a couple of options that you can fool around with when you're creating your character. But I was just surprised because, like, back in Armored Core days, the only customization that you would have would be your mech. But in this one, you actually do create a character, and your character can actually exit the mech in the middle of the action. But in my opinion, at least from what we see in this demo, it's like, if you get to the point where you have to exit the mech because your mech is completely busted, your character is going to be pretty useless. But there is actual leveling up, and the leveling up affects your character itself. There's certain skill points that will affect your performance in the mech, and then there are other skill points that actually affect your character. I think there's even like a skill point that you could increase your melee damage. And I was like, dude, the last thing I want to do is grab my little human character with a sword and go up against the mech. I don't think that's going to be a very fair fight, but maybe there will actually be missions where you have to get out of your mech. Maybe you'll have to infiltrate facilities or something like that, but I don't know if that is going to be a thing or not. But either way, I did find it interesting that you can customize your character and you actually can level it up. So when you get started in the game, you actually show up in a hangar, and you can move your character around. And in that hangar, you can customize your mech, and the mech customization is just what you would expect from something from the Armored Core guys. So to give you guys an idea, it's like every part of the mech is a part that you can change, and each of the parts is going to change the effect on your mech in some way. So for instance, you can change your torso for a tankier torso, but then that might reduce your speed. And you can have certain arms on your mech that might be tankier, but they'll reduce your speed as well. Or maybe they're not as good at auto firing, which is something that I'll get into later on. But basically you can replace left arm, right arm, torso, head, and legs. And all of these are going to have some kind of a performance impact on your mech. And you can actually do that in this demo because throughout the different missions, you can actually salvage parts from enemy mechs, and then you take them back to base, and then you can, change your loadout around. And I would advise you guys to do that if you plan on doing that last mission, because that last mission, I personally found it challenging with the default mech. So I went back and I grinded for some gear off of the mechs that you kill. And you can actually get some pretty good stuff there. And I actually like the way that it worked, because it worked very much like a random loot system. So you go up to a mech and there will be like 2 or 3 parts that you can salvage from it, but you can only pick one. And some of the parts will have like better rarities with better stats and stuff like that. Whereas other parts will just be common parts, but they still might be better than the stuff that you have. So you have to like pick and choose, oh, I want to take this thing or that thing or the other thing. So the looting system, I actually kind of liked it. I thought it was good. So yeah, there's mech customization, there's character customization, you can scavenge enemy mechs for parts, and then you can build them onto your mech in between missions. The mech gameplay actually felt good because of how agile the mechs are. It's going to take you a while to get used to the controls, and I think it also might take a lot of people a while to get used to the field of vision, the FOV, because it is pretty close to you. You do play this in third person, but at the same time, the range of the stuff that you can see because of the FOV settings, which you cannot change, unfortunately, is somewhat limiting, and I'm not sure that everybody's going to be able to get adjusted to that, but hey, that's the way things are. That's what you're going to get with this game, and due to the limitations of the Switch, I don't think they're going to mess with the FOV all that much. When you first start playing, one of the things that you're going to notice is that the UI is extremely overwhelming. You're going to be like, Jesus Christ, look at all these colorful things. There's cubes popping up on my screen everywhere. I have no idea what is going on. What I can tell you is that after you play for like, I don't know, 30 minutes or something, you'll start to get acclimated. Your brain will start to filter out the stuff that is not essential, and you'll start to understand what you have to do, when you should be pulling the trigger, what enemies you should be firing at, and how the gunplay actually feels. Because even at the start, when you start firing the guns, it's going to feel a little bit off to the point where you'll be like, am I actually firing the gun? Is the gun actually being fired? But as you play more and more, you'll start to see the hits registering, and the numbers pop up as you start hitting enemies and stuff. It will get better the more you play. And once you get used to all of that, once you get used to the UI and how it works, once you get used to the guns and all of that stuff, it feels friggin' fantastic. It feels awesome. Just like zipping around in your mech, whether you're on the ground or you're flying in the air, just zipping around, killing enemies left and right, and, just like fighting the battles and stuff. I thought it felt awesome. But the biggest problem is that feeling that you get of satisfaction as you are, flying your big mech around and shooting everything down and all that stuff is going to come to a screeching halt in some of these missions when your frame drop is going to get into the low teens. Like, that's really bad. Like, particularly I think it's the second mission that you go into where they will spawn these 2 giant immortals on screen. Like, that, the performance in that mission is just completely abysmal, and I would even say it's almost unplayable, because it's... You guys know me. I don't complain too much about performance. Like, I'll mention it here and there where I think there's a problem. And in this game, dude, it is a serious problem. And it is something that I really hope they fix, because I think that there's something really, really cool here. particularly for Armored Core fans. If you're a big fan of the Armored Core franchise, I think that this game right here is going to be a no-brainer. This game is going to have multiplayer. It's going to have 4-player co-op, which is going to be pretty sweet. I don't know if you'll be able to actually play the story missions with your friends, because in the missions that I've played in the demo, there's always been like mechs accompanying me, and there's actually a cool like story briefing type thing with characters talking about stuff. I just wish that your character could participate in that conversation and actually say things and have other characters react to that, but I realize that this is probably not that kind of game, so I'm not too bothered by it. But either way, I gotta tell you guys, I think this one shows a lot of promise. The biggest thing is they gotta sort out those performance issues. If they sort out those performance issues, I think this is gonna be awesome. What do you guys think about it? Did you get to play it yet? Let me know in the comment sections below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
We're done. Time to head back.